Good day everyone, and welcome to the shop. Today we're just doing a simple repair on a pulley from the local golf course, and I thought this would be a great project to video. It's got some techniques that you don't see too often, especially if you're new to machining and something like this comes across your bench. This could pull you out of a jam. So why don't we step over to the bench and I'll show you what we got and how we're going to deal with it. Okay, so what we've got is about a 7.5 inch diameter pulley by about 1.25 inches thick pulley. It's cast. It used to fit a 1-inch shaft, and as you can see, it's been wallered out quite a bit, pretty good. And little side note is this used to have a 1/4 inch key machined into this pulley that's been sheared off. So what we're going to do is we're going to get this set up in the lathe. We're going to face both sides of the pulley off where they contact. You can see there's well, I don't know if you can see, but there's a lot of wear here where it's just worn into the pulley, probably from rocking around. So we're going to machine that all true, and then we'll bore this out to a new diameter. Whatever that diameter is, we'll broach a new keyway slot, and then what we'll do is turn down a bushing to step this down from whatever diameter we end up at back to the 1-inch diameter of the shaft that this fits on, and then we'll mill a slot in that bushing so that our keyway can slide through the bushing into our pulley and also lock on to the shaft. This is a pretty, for me, this is probably one of the most simplest projects I've had in quite a while, and I thought it'd be a good little process to demonstrate. So let's step over to the lathe, get this set up, and we'll get rolling. Okay, so we've got our pulley in the chuck. I'm just doing this on the 3-jaw chuck. This will not, when I start the boring and broaching process, I'm going to do all that on the lathe, and that is not going to come out of the 3-jaw chuck until that operation is done. So that being said, let's go ahead and face off our front, flip it around, face off the back, and then we'll go ahead and get started on the broaching operation. So we're going to be running at about 325 RPM. I think will be just fine for this project. I'm going to start on the high side. And being cast, this is self-lubricating. This is 10/1000ths first cut. And all we want to do is get these two surfaces machined flat again. Whenever I'm working on any kind of bore or through hole, I always like to work from the inside out, so I'm pulling the burr to the outside. I should not have a burr if I do it this way. Yeah, we got a little bit of a low spot right there, so we'll go ahead and take one more pass, probably just about 5/1000ths, and that'll be good on this side. Go ahead and change cutters in my setup. I just want to deburr my part. Now that's the thing with these cast pulleys, they're not made very accurately. I think this just goes on an old finish mower that they use out there. So go ahead and get this flipped around, seat it up against my jaws. Lock down, and we'll change my cutter back. Face off the other side of our pulley. This side's not too bad. I'll be a little bit more aggressive on this side because it's not as bad. Probably 15/1000ths. See if we can't get it cleaned up one pass. I think we're going to need one more. I was thinking it'd probably take about 25, but I really don't want to take more metal than I need to. This is another 10th thou, and this will do it. Alright, so we got everything faced off and deburred. So now we're going to swap over to our boring bar. Okay, so we have our boring bar set up. What I'll say about when you're boring a hole, you want as much boring bar as you absolutely need to do the job that you need it to do. The more bar you have hanging out there, the more chatter you're going to get, and I do want this to be a pretty good finish, so I got my change the setup on my lathe a little bit. We'll go ahead, get fired up, get touched off, and start this process. I'm going to set my 0, and I typically, if I'm not running a reverse setup, I'm going to run into whatever it is I'm boring. And I should have just enough bar to get all the way through our pulley without crashing. It's important to set your 0 so that you can always back out, go back to your whatever it was you just cut, and then add on to your dimensions. So for example, you started at 0. I took 10 thousandths on that pass, so I backed it out, returned to 10 thousandths, and now I'm going to take 30 thousandths. This is going to take a lot to get this hole trued up. You could ream it, just ream it out. I like to bore. I think that's a little bit more accurate. Well, it is a lot more accurate. And where I want this a pretty tight slip fit, I need it to be pretty accurate. We'll go about 60 thousandths right there. There we go, we're starting to get some good chips now. Not a lot of chatter. And the closer this comes to being concentric, the better the result will be. I'm going to try to get it all done right now. We're going to go for 50 thou. That'll bring it pretty close. Yeah, we still got a little bit. It's close. There's another 50 thousandths. And then what I'll do is, once we get it concentric, I'll take a reading, and then we'll figure out how thick our bushing needs to be. Yeah, we still got a long ways to go. This was wallered out and bell mouthed, so I'm going to end up taking another 50 thou. Yeah, we'll go 60. That ought to do it. 60 thou. Yeah, she's chewed up now. No excessive vibration or anything like that, so this ought to be a really good finish. Yep, that's good and cleaned out. This will be a burr on the inside. We don't want to cut ourselves. So we'll just clean this out with a rag. shop towel. Finish looks really good. Let's go ahead and see what kind of wonky measurement we got. So we're at 1.404, right on the money. And I think what we'll shoot for is 1 inch and 7/16. That'll give us a nice bushing. And so I want 1.4375 is my final dimension. So I need to go 33.5 thou. So I'm going to re-zero my machine, take a scratch pass, we'll measure it. So we'll take a scratch pass, re-zero our machine, take another measurement, and then the boring operation will be done. It's very important to establish your zero, so you have a point to go back to. And so we'll get this cleaned out. And we'll get in there and take a measurement. See what we got. So we are now at 1.409, right on the money. 1.4090. We need a finished diameter of 1.4375. So we have 28.5 thousandths left to go. So I'm going to do that in 2 passes. There's 10, 20, and then we'll measure, and we'll just sneak up on it. This part probably doesn't have to be super critical, but I do like to be pretty precise. So we'll get back out, clean that up. You could blow this out with air. I don't like to use a lot of air on my lathe. You get chips everywhere, and it's just means you got to tear it down and clean everything up a little bit more often. I want my lathe to last a long time, so I prefer to wipe and brush everything off. I'm not saying I don't ever use air, but I'm not addicted to it. We are at 1.4340. So we have 3.5 thou left to go. So what I'll do here is we'll just go basically about 1.5 thou until we get to our about 1 thou to 1 thou and a half until we get to our final dimension. Should have about 1 thou or so to go. And that's why we measure, because we're right at 1.4375. I've pretty much gone as far as I can go with this part today. I'm waiting on some new cutting blanks to show up. I had to, mine are pretty much wore out. As far as the length of the keyway that I need to cut in this application. So that'll be here this week, or later this week. So what we're going to do, and I thought I'd take a little bit of time as we close out and just talk to you a little bit about this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and pull this off the machine, set it on the bench so I don't have my lathe tied up for the rest of the week. And what I wanted to talk to you about is, you'll notice I have this set up in the 3-jaw chuck. Now this is just your regular standard 3-jaw chuck. If I remove the part from this 3-jaw chuck, I have lost concentricity. Your standard 3-jaw chuck, they typically have between 1 thou to 3 thousandths variance, depending on the scroll, the wear on the scroll, and the jaws, to where repeatability is next to nil. So if you have to remove the part from the lathe, it's best, and you're using a standard 3-jaw chuck, it's best to leave the part in the chuck and remove it as a unit. One thing that I do is I index a point on my chuck and on my spindle so that the chuck goes in the same spot every single time, which increases the repeatability. So I just thought that'd be worth mentioning if you're new to machining. If you have a true set chuck or a true chuck, or something like that is scrolling, but they're made to much tighter tolerances, you once you set it to your machine, as long as you index the chuck to your spindle, you really don't have to worry about those things. So anyway, let's go ahead and get this off the lathe, and I'll show you the finished surfaces. Okay, so here's our pulley out of the machine, and we faced trued up both sides and then boarded out, and you can see we have a very nice finish in there. Well, hopefully you can see that. No chatter or anything like that, so it should be, this has got all the groundwork laid to make a nice, cost-effective, reasonable repair on this pulley. So in part 2 we'll go ahead and broach our keyway, and that's why this is staying in the chuck, in the lathe chuck. I'm gonna show you how to do that on the lathe, and then from there we can remove the pulley and go ahead and start milling or machining our sleeve. That just about wraps up part 1 of our pulley repair video. I hope you found value in this. I realized I didn't get into too much of the operations or to how to do those operations in this video. Those are pretty basic, simple operations, but I will cover those in future videos. Really, the interesting part will be in part 2. I'm going to try to finish this up in the second part. So we'll broach the keyway on the lathe, turn down our adapter bushing, then we'll head over to the mill, cut the slot for the keyway in that, and then just then we'll have to fit the keyway to our dimensions, or the key itself to our final dimensions, and it'll be all done. So anyway, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. Stay tuned, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ding that little bell for notifications. Thanks, everyone.